This is the hardest thing we will have done, certainly in my lifetime as a country. This is on par with winning World War II, perhaps even more challenging than that.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about CNN's climate change town hall from yesterday, which was Wednesday, September the 4th, 2019, that featured quite a few 2020 Democratic presidential hopefuls, including Joe Biden, Cory Booker, Pete Buttigieg, Julian Castro, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar for some reason. Don't really know why, but I digress. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Andrew Yang, and Beto O'Rourke. Now, this was a very long town hall. It started at 5 p.m. and ended at midnight Eastern time. So you're talking about 7 hours or more. Very long. I'm not going to be able to get through everybody's comment. So I'm just going to address some of the key issues that were spoken about during the town hall. One takeaway that I can tell you straight from the beginning that I got from the town hall was not so much about climate change, but more about control from the federal government. They want to control everything you do. They want to control what kind of foods you eat, whether you got to be vegetarian, a meat eater, what kind of utensils you use while you're eating your food. You can't use plastic straws. You got to use steel straws. Kamala Harris even kind of harpooned that whole argument about plastic straws.
And plastic straws are a big thing right now.
Yeah.
Do you ban plastic straws?
I think we should. Yes. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. It's really difficult to drink out of a paper straw when if you don't gulp it down immediately, it starts to bend.
Yes.
And then, the little thing catches it. And then, so we got to kind of perfect that one a little bit more.
So you get on stage and say you can't use plastic straws, but then paper straws don't really work. And by the way, you cannot recycle paper straws, but that's a whole different story, and I digress. I guess you would say we got to use steel straws, although those are dangerous. People get impaled with those, and also, how are you really going to clean it? When I go to a restaurant, I'm looking at my silverware to see if it's clean, and 7 times out of 10 it's not, and they got to return it and tighten it up. How are you going to be able to tell if the inside of a reused steel straw is clean or not? I don't know, but we'll move on. They want to control how many kids you can have. They also want to control how many kids people in other nations should have, like my man Bernie Sanders said.
Educating everyone on the need to curb population growth seems a reasonable campaign to enact. Would you be courageous enough to discuss this issue and make it a key feature of a plan to address climate catastrophe?
Well, Martha, the answer is yes. And the answer has everything to do with the fact that women in the United States of America, by the way, have a right to control their own bodies and make reproductive decisions. And the Mexico City Agreement, which denies American aid to those organizations around the world that allow women to have abortions or even get involved in birth control, to me is totally absurd.
So I'm just really trying to figure out if it's about climate change or if it's about trying to control people, trying to kill off certain populations and do different things. One thing about the whole, you got to be a vegan versus being a meat eater argument that is being overlooked, in my humble opinion, is the fact that if you become vegetarian to quote unquote fight climate change, you're also going to damage the environment more through agriculture. All right. You can't just magically have fruits and veggies drop down from the sky. You got to be able to grow that. You got to be able to farm. That takes pesticides. That's a lot of real estate you're going to be able to use up when you're talking about earth. You're talking about topsoil erosion, all kind of things that come as a result of agriculture. You see that a lot in China right now. They have less arable land because of over farming, and that's going to be the result of switching from meat to all vegetables, and fruits and whatnot. Andrew Yang seemed to think that, the UN is right by saying we can just become vegan and everything's going to be better, but that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if you are an environmentalist, but I'll move on from that. Also, they want to tax everything to death. Bernie Sanders not only wants to tax you to death, but he also wants to tax you and use that money to go overseas to fund abortion, to quote unquote, help climate change. Now, that is a crazy position to hold, but that's pretty much where they are right now. I don't like the climate change hysteria. Everybody on stage said basically the same thing with varying degrees of intensity or extremism. All right. They're all in the bag for this whole climate change nonsense. Nobody separated themselves away from the pack. Nobody did anything more than what they have been doing throughout the entirety of this whole process. Joe Biden looked just as bad as he always has. Look at this clip right here of him sounding very confused.
Look what's happened in the Midwest. We have a number of significant bases that relate military bases that relate to our national security that, in fact, were rendered almost useless, including, I can't go into the great detail to say it, but my point is it significantly reduced our national security. Last thing I'll say.
Now, I'm not a Joe Biden fan. I'm not a Barack Obama fan, but I'm not going to say that I like what's happening to this guy. He obviously is dealing with some serious problems. I'm not a doctor, so I can't diagnose him with Alzheimer's, but that's pretty much what it looks like. You know, maybe the early onset of it. I mean, he didn't know where he was at. He was confused, stuttering and stammering. His eye was bleeding randomly. It's like, okay, somebody should just take him to the side and be like, thank you for your service, Mr. Biden, but it's no longer needed. Go home, get some sleep, and you're going to be done. Let's put somebody else in the quote unquote front running because you're not going to be it. At one point in time, he was a far and away leader, but now he's like pretty much neck and neck with your Kamala Harris and your Pocahontas Elizabeth Warren. Speaking of Pocahontas, she wants to ban nuclear energy.
So you rightly point out about nuclear energy. It's not carbon-based, but the problem is it's got a lot of risks associated with it, particularly the risks associated with the spent fuel rods, that nobody can figure out how we're going to store these things for the next bazillion years. So here's how I see it. In my administration, we're not going to build any new nuclear power plants. And we are going to start weaning ourselves off nuclear energy and replacing it with renewable fuels over, we're going to get it all done by 2035, but I hope we're getting it done faster than that. That's the plan.
Now, I'm not really sure why you want to do that if the whole purpose is to fight CO2 emission. Nuclear energy is low or no CO2. And that's the whole purpose of it. It's a cleaner energy. Yes, you do have the toxic waste, the nuclear waste, but if it's about reducing CO2 in the atmosphere, nuclear energy will most certainly help you with that. So I'm not really sure what they're going to do to have energy. Are they going to focus on wind turbines, hydroelectric? That's not going to get her done. I'm sorry. Solar panels, that's not going to get it done. That may be able to power a house, like one house. Speaking of solar powering a house, Bernie Sanders said that him and his wife got a tax credit to put panels on top of their house. And within 8 years, it'd be paid off. And then they get, quote unquote, free electricity. But how was it free? All you did was just take out a loan, basically, and got a tax credit to pay for your energy in advance rather than paying for it month to month like you would do normally with electricity that does not come from solar panels on top of your house. So I just don't really understand that whole thing. He's framing it in a way that will make you think, oh, it's going to be free, but how much is that actually going to cost up front? It's got to cost a lot. I'm sure Bernie has plenty of money. So you're going to pay 8 years to finish paying for your solar panels? That's a very long time to wait. Everybody pretty much said that they want to ban fracking and also offshore drilling. But I mean, we can't really, it doesn't make any sense because you still rely on fossil fuel. I mean, airplanes, trains, buses, subway systems, everything is relying upon fossil fuels. Okay. Just electricity in general relies on that. You have hospitals that have to always be functioning and they rely upon fossil fuels. The technology is not there to replace fossil fuels. Joe Biden talking about he wants to shut down coal burning plants. Well, what are you going to replace them with? There's not enough technology right there to be able to do it. No country on planet Earth has a system where they don't use fossil fuels. Everybody still uses that. Andrew Yang was talking about banning certain cars or saying that you will not be able to buy a new car that runs on fossil. It's going to have to be electric. And then he said that there may still be some quote unquote clunkers on the road that use gas. It's like, so you calling my car a clunker, sir? I find it hilarious that these guys and girls talk about climate change, and if you're still driving a gas powered car without it being hybrid, you're part of the problem. And if you still eat cheeseburgers and you have incandescent light bulbs, you're part of the problem. But they're frequent flyers flying all over the world. The amount of CO2 and whatnot that a plane produces is astronomical. I mean, they said something like one trip is the equivalent of a year in the car. Like, I'm not really sure about the exact comparison, but it's a lot. I mean, you get this big, huge object flying in the air with a lot of people on board. They're using a whole lot of fuel. They're flying very fast in the air. It's using a lot of fuel. They fly all over the world. They have armed guards, but they say to us, you can't even drive your quote unquote clunker to Whole Foods, and you can't have a gun in the store to protect yourself. Meanwhile, they got a whole security detail that are fully armed. Basically, do as I say, not as I do. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. So what do you think? Do you think that everyone on stage at the CNN climate change town hall were being sincere with their concerns about the environment? Oh, we got to stop using plastic straws. We can't use incandescent light bulbs. You can't eat hamburgers anymore. I mean, are they serious with that, or are they just trying to cater to the crowd that was there and to people that may vote for them that really believe in this whole climate change nonsense? I saw a poll that said 74% of people under the age of 35 believe in climate change, and that's a problem. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but they may be kind of accurate, especially for the very young people that don't really know any better. They've been taught all throughout their school experience, K through 12 and college, that climate change is a real thing. And if we don't do anything right now, like, what's a man's name? Beto, like he said, if we don't fix it now, we're going to be living in an inhospitable world in like 8 years. Just dumb stuff. But they're being taught that. So I can't really blame the young people for believing in it. But are they just trying to cater to those people that believe in climate change, or do they really believe in it? I find it hard for them to really believe in it, since they're frequent flyers. They fly all over the world, constantly moving around, buses and everything else. They use a whole lot of fuel to do what they got to do. Or do you think it's all part of a bigger plan to enact government control? All right. Like I said, they want to control everything you do. How many kids you have, what kind of utensils you use, what kind of food you eat. I'm not for the control. Really, what I saw on stage as I closed was communism. Simple as that. People like Pete Buttigieg want to talk about, oh, fighting this fight will be just as hard as World War II. That was a really crazy statement, but it's also a very enlightening one. You had a lot of government control in Nazi Germany. That was the whole thing. Everything was controlled. Everything was micromanaged. That was the whole point. Maybe they want to go back to that system, and maybe they know if they get into power and that were to happen, the only way to dethrone them, so to speak, would be through a war. Maybe that's where they're coming from. Maybe they're not. Whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.